All right, so we're using here phthalo blue and raw umber. So raw umber can make my phthalo blue look more earthy, darker and earthy. It will change. Phthalo blue is turquoise and it's strong. So the best thing to do is to keep it earthy with using raw umber. We can highlight this or make it a little bit more greenish with Naples yellow, because Naples yellow is soft. It doesn't take over. The other option is to use Prussian blue and Naples yellow. Prussian blue is grayer and it's bluer than phthalo blue. Phthalo blue is turquoisey, intense. Prussian blue is more subdued and it's more kind of a bit earthy, grayer than phthalo blue. So I'm using phthalo blue and raw umber. So now, and a bit of Naples yellow. So now let's say on this side, I see more of the browns in here. So all I have to do is with my phthalo blue, and it's a layer that's not thick, so my paint is not thick, because I want to put layers. I want to build it up. So this is the water, and water most of the time, I do it this way. Other people do it in a different way maybe, but I build up my layers. I do my water horizontal, and anything that is reflection, I do it, usually I try to do it vertical. This is darker, maybe a little bit more brown on the side. And if I need to darken or change the color, I'll do it later. But for now, I'm trying to put my first layer to get this color, this beautiful color of water in here. Just try to make my color a bit, my paint a little bit a lighter, not lighter, I'm sorry, thinner, because I am, first of all, I want to make sure that it covers, especially on this side. Good coverage. And we're going to simplify all this reflection in here. We will pick the reflection that we want. A bit more. I'm keeping an eye on my reference. A bit more brown in here. It looks like when you're closer to a building in here, the water is browner, especially next to the edge of that. It makes sense. Reflection of the building. It's the dark color of the stone at the bottom. softer here. I don't need too much blue in there where the strong reflection is. My brush is just a flat brush or bright. I'm not using a wide brush. I could, if I want, I could use a wider brush, but I'm using a medium kind of brush just because I like to have a bit of brush strokes in here. I don't want the water to look too perfect. If you will use a wide brush, you will have a smooth, very smooth surface paint. Good. Now let's go to the left. So with the left, we have a bit of more browns in here, and it's not really brown. It's like a lighter brown, and it's the reflection of the buildings. So I'm just going to try to do a bit of what I'm seeing in there. Actually, you know what? Let's bring in the blue in here, the same blue. And we can do whatever we want on top of that. So we don't have, then we'll have a smoother, more even kind of color instead of having a bunch of strange brush strokes overlapping. Let's make this, clean it up. Because we can put any color we want over this. Soft edges, no harsh edges. Okay, it's good. Now I can work over this and it's easier now. Whatever I put on top, it's fine because I have a base that's unified. Good. Okay. Okay, so let's start on this, the left side of the building, reflection. So now we have all of the water kind of base. We're good. Now we're going to start adding different levels of reflection in here. So for the left side, what I'm doing is I'm using the color of the building. So I have burnt sienna, and I'm using a bit of raw umber in it, just a tiny bit, not much. And I'm highlighting my burnt sienna with Naples yellow. And I'm going to do round brush. Just a bit of a kind of a line for me. And I'm going to go across. It's probably better if my paint is a bit wet, because then it will be more solid. I won't have that dark, broken up brushstroke. That's good. So let's bring in a couple of brush strokes out this way, overlapping with the water a bit, so the edge is not too sharp. Now I can see in the reflection and in the reference that once we get to the bottom part, closer to here, the color is changing into a light brown kind of, but that I would do it after. I'm going to keep on doing this because I'm going with what it's reflecting. And it's reflecting the building, which is a nice warm color. That's the first reflection. Okay, I'm going to change my reflection in a minute into a brown, light brown actually. I'm going to take titanium, raw umber. Let's see if I use Naples yellow, if it's the right color. Actually, it's a lovely color. So this is raw umber and a bit of and Naples yellow. So I'm changing from burnt sienna into slowly into raw umber and Naples yellow. Let's bring some of this raw umber and Naples yellow into that, just a bit, so it doesn't look like it's completely disconnected. You know, you don't want to make sure that this doesn't look like it's this from here to here is only burnt sienna and Naples yellow, and then from here to here is only raw umber and burnt and Naples yellow. So we're just gonna, and I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna take burnt sienna and Naples yellow and mix it a bit from time to time with my with the raw umber and Naples yellow that I have here. Let's take, this is Naples, Naples yellow and burnt sienna now. Again, I'm gonna go back to my raw umber and Naples yellow. Okay. Now, I like that we have blue underneath because I can see some blue on this side as well. So I'm going to take a bit of that blue that I had before, and I'm just going to kind of introduce it a bit here and there. I'm trying to water it down as much as I can. We don't have to do the whole thing, just here. You'll see in a minute once I start putting my more highlights of the reflection, it will make sense. Okay. Titanium buff. I think titanium buff is a good color now to highlight this side, because white is going to be too strong, and we're going to be using more kind of adding white with the strong highlight that's in the center. So for now, I just want to highlight what I am doing right now. So this is raw umber. And I'm going to take a bit of Naples yellow. I'm going to make it 2 light, but light enough to see a difference between the first layer I put there and the second layer. And the Naples yellow is to give it a bit of, I can take raw umber and highlight my raw umber with only titanium buff. But I want this raw umber to have a bit of yellow in it, you know, about a bit of this color of the wall that we were putting before. And then I will add the titanium buff. Let me see first if this is good. Yeah, this is good. But it will take, I can add a bit of titanium buff in it. Again, it's not very, very thick. It's a good kind of, let's start from here. I don't want to cover completely everything I've done underneath, but I want to show some of these, the reflection. Let's take a bit of titanium buff. Add a couple of ripples in here over with titanium buff and raw umber and Naples yellow. Just a couple. That's what is nice about water, is the layering of the highlights that makes it look like it's a reflection. It's actually the smoother, the better. I'm just changing into a wider brush. Let's take a bit more of the titanium buff and add it to that color that we're using. Now I'm going back to my burnt sienna, adding titanium buff mixing it with the color I had before I was working on. I'm going to come here and put, oh, I need a smaller brush. Okay. All of this will look way better once we start adding a strong reflection in the center. Usually I wait for it to dry and I see if it needs glazing to tone it down, or what it needs to be done to make it better. What I'm seeing from the picture is that I might need to use raw umber. And I mix my raw umber with it. It has a bit of that blue in there. I'm not trying to actually copy exactly what I'm seeing in here, but I'm trying to kind of take the colors, same kind of combination of colors, and put them on this side, put them over the, in the water on this side. So now I'm taking titanium buff. This has raw umber, a bit of the blue, which is phthalo blue, mixed together with it here. And then I pushed in tiny bit of the burnt sienna that I have. And now I'm adding more titanium buff. I'm trying to show a bit more titanium buff. It's a titanium buff that has the color of the water in it, which is phthalo blue, raw umber, and Naples yellow mixed together, but it has here titanium buff in it to make it lighter. So this part, it does have a bit of the phthalo blue and raw umber, which is normal. And titanium buff, of course. I don't want to overdo it here. I'm just going to do a couple of layers, brush strokes, and then I'll leave it alone, let it dry, settle. I'll take it from there. Right, for the right side, a bit of highlights, of course, and reflections. So we're going to start working on this side. I mixed same raw umber, phthalo blue, and this time raw umber, phthalo blue, and titanium buff. And I made it kind of watery, so it's not heavy. And I'm just going to put some in here and this on this side. Just a bit. Of course, to get rid of the strong blue that I have in there, and start introducing some reflections in here. So I'm still working with water kind of colors, no strong reflection yet.
I know you're recording, but you said you were going to use Prussian blue, but you've mentioned phthalo blue. Should I be switching to phthalo?
No. If you're
Okay.
using Prussian, keep on using Prussian.
Okay.
So whatever I'm using in here, other than phthalo blue, applies to Prussian.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same. Well, we can talk even if I'm.
I know.
So I'm changing the color of the water a bit. I'm leaving some of the blue that I have there, but I'm starting to add layers of different greens and reflections in here. Okay, good. Now, exactly the same again. Let's put it here. I'm adding more titanium buff and adjusting the color from a strong highlight color of the phthalo blue using toning. I'm toning it down using raw umber. And this is titanium buff. Let's put some water in here so it's kind of more like a glaze. There's a lot of the building colors in here, reflection of the building. So especially it's closer to this side. You see more browns, kind of greenish brown or toned down reflection. We're not going to do that. It's too much. I'm just trying to put some, oh. This is a bit darker, so I'm going from darker to lighter, lighter to darker, just to combine the reflection and the color of the water, and it doesn't look like it it looks like smooth transition from one color to another reflection. It helps if the paint is watery. It helps a lot. It flows better when it's watery. And it blends. I highlight more with titanium buff. Just push down a bit, a couple of brush strokes, kind of this way. Right, a little bit more, a couple more like that. So a little bit more titanium buff with my green, and then just push it down. So I go across, and then I push it kind of like that. That makes it look like water reflection. Slowly, I'm adding more titanium buff, making sure that it's still watery, my paint. Transparency is really important with water, and slowly adding highlights, kind of overlapping them a bit slowly, and making sure that the water is paint, actually I should say, is glazed, like there's enough water so you don't get heavy paint. You should get smooth transition from one highlight to another. So I mixed phthalo blue, or if you have Prussian blue, with raw umber and a tiny bit of black. Any black you have. I'm using ivory black, and I'm watering down my color, round brush, and I'm just putting, you know, when you use black, use a bit, don't use too much. And I'm just using putting a bit of a kind of a movement in the water here in darks, in a dark paint color. I'm gonna highlight this a bit, just a bit of titanium buff in it. I want the ripple, but I want it to be, I don't want it to be too strong, too dark. That ripple helps with the movement, because the boat is moving, so the ripple usually is not heavy, strong. It's just kind of darker color of the water, and it's soft. leave it alone.